Hello and welcome to the Next Generation Librarians online conference. This is a joint endeavor between the Texas Library Association District 5 and District 7. We will be having 5 different professional development sessions today during the course of the conference. You can watch our webpage, nextgenerationlibrarians.wordpress.com, for session updates, links, description info, and presenter info. We encourage you to attend these free professional development sessions today. If you can't catch them live, they will be archived on our nextgenerationlibrarianswordpress.com website for you to watch at a later date. I am Nancy Jo Lambert, and I am the Texas Library Association District 5 current conference, and I'm also excited that we are including our Texas Library Association District 7 people as well. So I'm going to turn it over to our District 7 chairperson for him.
Hello, my name is Chris Helge, and I'm the chair of the Texas Library Association District 7. And thank you all for coming to the virtual conference today. We've got some great speakers, and I know everyone's in for a real treat. Thank you for those who were able to attend our dinner last night, and they're back again. And look forward to hearing from all the speakers. Thank you.
All right, so I'm going to introduce our keynote speaker today, who for a lot of the librarians in our profession probably doesn't need an introduction, but I'm going to go ahead and introduce him anyway. Our keynote today is brought to you by Andy Plemmons and the Texas Library Association. Andy is the School Library Media Specialist at David C. Barrow Elementary School in Athens, Georgia. He is a Google certified teacher. His library program is grounded in transliteracy, participatory culture, and students as creators of content shared with the global community. Andy's students are often seen Skyping with authors, guest speakers, and the developers of the tools they use in class. He also collaborates with librarians around the country, and I'm going to add around the world. Andy has presented at numerous conferences, including the School Library Journal Leadership Summit, American Association of School Librarians Conference, and the Texas Library Association Annual Conference. Andy has articles in Teacher Librarian, Knowledge Quest, and is also a monthly columnist for Library Sparks. He served on national conference planning committees, including the School Reform Initiative Winter Meeting, where he was the social media chair. Andy has received several honors, including the George Exemplary Elementary Library Media Program, finalist for School Library Journal Librarian of the Year, Northeast Georgia Library Media Specialist of the Year, and the Clark County Foundation for Excellence Catherine H. Hug Instructional Leadership Award. I encourage you to follow Andy on both his blog at www.barrowmediacenter.com and on Twitter at PlemonsA. So without further ado, I'm going to turn it over to Andy Plemmons. Thank you so much for joining us, Andy.
All right, I'm glad to be here. Let me get my screen shared with all of you. All right. So today I'm going to be talking about what it's like to create goals that really matter to you in your school or in your public library, because I know we have lots of different librarians joining us today, and to ask ourselves the question, what goals truly matter in our libraries? This year I was really thinking a lot about the goals that I really could carry with me all year long. In the past, I've made goals that were specific to the collection that I was trying to develop, and I'm not saying that those goals are wrong or that we shouldn't develop goals about our collections, but are those the ones that really set our libraries apart? Are goals about collections really what matter to the members of our libraries? So this year I started to think about what are the goals that I can create that are going to engage families and the community in the library? what are the goals that I really can carry with me into every single collaborative meeting that I go to, whether it's a meeting with teachers, administrators, district leaders, whether it's a meeting that I'm collaborating with people around the country in a Google Hangout, that these goals are constantly something that is etched in my mind, that really matter to my library program. I think about the goals of the past few years that I've had, and they certainly were goals that I probably needed at the time, but I don't really remember them. But this year, the goals that I've created really are ones that I feel like, if anybody asks me, what are you trying to do in your library this year? I can say these 4 goals by heart and give specific examples every day of how these goals are impacting the kinds of things that we do in our library. So today I'm encouraging all of us to really think about what are the goals that matter in your own libraries, whether it's a public library or a school library. For me, one of the guiding books that I had really came to me last year when I was reading Flora and Ulysses by Kate DiCamillo. And so this book kind of inspired a motto that that really all of the teachers and students in my school have kind of adopted too. And I hear people constantly reminding me, let's expect the miraculous. I'm going to expect the miraculous in what I do. I've heard so many teachers repeat that because I've been so public about this motto, and it comes from page 130 in Flora and Ulysses, and I'll just read this little excerpt. All things are possible, said Dr. Measham. When I was a girl in Blunder Meeson, the miraculous happened every day, or every other day, or every third day. Actually, sometimes it didn't happen at all, even on the third day. But still, we expected it. You see what I'm saying? Even when it didn't happen, we were expecting it. We knew the miraculous would come. And so this motto is not one that is one about bragging or saying that everything we do is miraculous, but it is kind of this attitude of going into every learning experience knowing that even if things don't work the way that you thought they were going to work, there's something miraculous there if you look carefully at what you're doing. And so over the summer, I started reflecting on what are the things that have impacted me as an educator that might inspire the goals that I create for the library this year. This year I went to Indianapolis and worked with 4 other amazing librarians with Events Games to really talk about what is the landscape of libraries right now and what challenges are we facing and why did we all come into librarianship. I attended the Google Teacher Academy, and a big part of this was about moonshot thinking and not just thinking about what's your next step, but what's 10 times beyond that next step, to really shoot for the moon, to not hold ourselves back in the kinds of things that we want to accomplish in our schools. I went to an Invent to Learn workshop with Gary Steger and Sylvia Martinez, and so there I learned a lot about tinkering and how that tinkering leads to discovery, because I tried things that I had never tried before. Like I made this star that lights up these wearable electronics, and it was so frustrating. And one of my friends, Okal Miller, was sitting beside me when I was making this, and I was on the verge of giving up, and I even said, I'm just going to quit, but I knew that I shouldn't, because I knew I would, if I quit, I was not doing what I talk about in my library. But going through that process as a librarian to really feel what it's like to tinker and to discover something in how proud you are of yourself really helped me to think about the kinds of goals I want to set for my library. I went to ISTE this summer, and the thing that I kept hearing over and over at ISTE was, it's not about the technology. We think about, we've got to do all this technology, and we do, but that's not what our libraries are really about. Our library is not about technology. I heard, there were some amazing speakers there, and some of the most amazing things just happen with the conversations you have with other librarians and the interactions you have on Twitter. But Ashley Judd was there, and lots of people, weren't singing her praises about her keynote, but one of the things that I took out of her keynote was that we should listen to our students' stories. And Kevin Carroll talked about the importance of play. And so I carried away from ISTE this just reassurance that we need to focus on our student voice. We need to focus on the importance of play. We need to give our students the freedom to wow us. The wonderful Tech Ninja Todd, was sharing an example of how he just, gave his kids a math assignment and said, I want you to wow me. And he didn't give them, all these things that they had to do with the project, but he just said, I want you to wow me. And they did. So I think that we of course have to give our students guidance and our library members guidance on the kinds of things that we want to happen in our libraries, but we also need to not worry about every little step along the way. We need to give our library members freedom. And I just kept hearing this idea of global collaboration coming up over and over and over. So I've said all these things that led up to these goals. So I want to spend a little bit of time talking about what these 4 goals are. So the first one is to provide students, teachers, and families opportunities to dream, tinker, create, and share. And so I put those 4 words in there intentionally because I think so oftentimes when we try to do something, I know in the education world, we feel the pressure of time, and a lot of times we jump right into the assignment, right into having our students make something and attach it to a rubric and all these different kinds of things, but we need to give them time to dream and to tinker before they have to create these. And I think sharing with the global community is a huge important part of that. David Lankes in Expect More talks about that great librarians experiment with new services, that we aren't afraid to go a little beyond our reach and fail, and that failure is okay. A mistake is when you do something wrong and you don't learn from it, but failure is where we reach for something that was way beyond what we could do probably in one moment, but that even in the failure we learn something and we learn about next steps. So I talk a lot about failure with my students, and I talk about, we really need to give ourselves permission to experiment, to take risks, to play. And Sylvia Martinez and Gary Steger talk about that in Invent to Learn, that when we give kids this opportunity to take risk and to fail and learn from that failure, we're really giving them permission to trust themselves. This year in the library, I've created these opportunities for kids just to kind of mess around in informal ways. I've put out these little centers that they come in, and we have an Osmo this year and some other little iPad things. And so we have this big purple counter in the library. So I put all these different things out on the counter that kids can just come in and mess around with. There are no expectations with it. But then, of course, that comes into projects that we do later on. I've been hosting alternative recesses where kids can come in during their recess time voluntarily and explore some of the stuff that we have at our makerspace. And then that just further supports curriculum-based things that we do later on when they've had experience just getting to mess around and figure out how things work. I've tried to build tinkering into lessons. So 3rd grade, for example, is about to do this big folktale project. Well, the teachers signed up to come and just do a story time. So I thought, well, we're going to use this, time where they haven't given me a very specific thing to do, and we're going to use this to tinker with something that we might use later on. So we read The Kamishibai Man by Alan Say, and then we created our own little stories as if we were a Kamishibai man out telling our stories with our bike and puppet theater. But we used the iPad app Puppet Pals because I thought this would be the perfect thing for us to do during our folktale unit, to have kids write their own script and make a puppet pal. So the kids just got to do whatever they wanted to and figure out how this iPad app worked. And then at the closing of that, they were able to say, okay, if we were going to write out a script, here are the things we would need to remember. And so they talked about all of these things that they would write into their script. A lot of the things that you may have assigned as the teacher or the librarian, but they discovered those on their own by tinkering. I love that our public library has started letting the library members check out ukuleles. It's just amazing. And so many people have been tinkering with ukuleles at our public library because the library offered that as a service. And now, because of interest from the community, they've started ukulele classes at the public library. So it started with this, here's a tool, play around with it. And now that people are interested and have messed around, there's people who want to learn how to play, and the public library has offered that as a service. I love this quote from Sylvia Martinez and Gary Steger in Invent to Learn, that we really can't wait. We can't wait until we're an expert in every single tool that's out there, because if we wait, we've waited too long. We need to give our kids time to figure out these tools, because they will. We just need to give them the space to experiment and tinker and figure out how things work, because when they do, they become leaders within their grade levels to teach other kids how to do things. They become leaders in the school. They become leaders outside of the school by sharing their expertise with students in another state. These are kindergartners that were teaching Shannon Miller's first graders in Iowa how to use tux paint. And they just felt so proud of themselves for being able to offer this to students in another state and be so empowered. Our kids can give each other feedback on their work through virtual connections. In my goal, I really tried to make a space for families, because it's not just the students. And when we're in a public library, especially, you work with everybody in a public library, and so we have to think not just about the young kids that come in, but we have to think about the families and the whole community. So trying to build in time for families to work together on projects, and also to bring families in to offer their expertise. This is a mom who came in and taught the kids about how to blog, because she does it as a part of her job at the University of Georgia. We've been partnering with the University of Georgia and bringing in classes to have one-on-one mentors with kids. There were some second graders who did this big research project, and each one of them had a University of Georgia student who paired with them to go through the research process. We partnered with a community organization called the Seed and Plate to come in and do some environmental work with our kids, and the students ended up making environmental comics, and they did blackout poetry, and all of those things were housed on the Seed and Plates website. I also think that we really need to think carefully about that sharing piece of this goal that I have, is that when our kids spend so much time creating, and our library members in our public libraries as well have so much expertise in things they're interested in and things they're making all the time, how can we connect that with a global audience? How can we connect outside of our schools? I loved this project that we did last year, where we used Flipgrid and S'more and several tools to create a project where kids were talking about famous people from Black history and asking people around the world to vote on who they thought should be on the next postage stamp. We used Flipgrid to record all of these videos, and then we started sharing that outside of our walls. People in the school, of course, watched it, but I loved how Shauna Ford in Texas allowed her second graders to view what my second graders had done and spend time voting on which person they were the most persuaded with. We Skyped with Chromeville. We were using the app Chromeville, and then we Skyped with the developers, and the kids were able to give them feedback on what was working with the tool, what wasn't working. We connected with Lindsay Hill at Evanced Games, and she talked to the kids about One Do Planet, and they gave her feedback on what they liked and what they didn't like. So I think we really have to think about how can we make our work public? How can we take the work that our students are creating and connect it with a global audience, because it really does make them feel proud and really makes them work harder on what they're going to do. Austin Kleon in Show Your Work talks about how online we're kind of all equal. Everyone, the artist, the curator, the master, the apprentice, the expert, the amateur, we all have the ability to contribute something online. So that's why I think it's important that as libraries, we look at how are we getting our members' work out to the world. So I have a Facebook page where I share things. I share things a lot on Twitter. Of course, my blog. And I love that, you know, when new social media tools come out, a lot of times libraries are the first people to adopt it. So our public library here, you know, as soon as something new came out, they're on board and they're offering the members of the library to get connected. So the second goal that I have for the library is about engaging in global thinking and global collaboration. So in the past, as many of you probably have, I've participated in things like International Dot Day, where we're Skyping with people around the world and reading the dot and being creative together. Talk Like a Pirate Day, where we share pirate stories with one another and then practice talking like pirates together. Read for the Record is coming up, where everybody's reading a same text. This year it's the text is bunny cakes. Hour of Code is in December, which is a great time to connect with other libraries and spend time coding together. And then November is National Picture Book Month, so it's a great month to connect and share picture books together. And of course, World Read Aloud Day in March is a time where lots of libraries connect. Last year we had the good fortune of we had 36 Skype sessions in my library, which connected us with 50 other places, 50 connections in 22 states, 2 countries, and there were 9 authors that were a part of that. And I'm just amazed that when we connect our kids globally, that it sort of breaks us out of our day-to-day routine. So often we get caught up in what we're doing every single day that we forget there's this whole world of people out there that have the same kinds of questions that we do, and we're all exploring the same kinds of things, but we don't ever connect with each other and share those same kinds of wonderings or conversations. Or what I love is the different perspectives that you get when you connect with someone globally. And I borrowed a couple of slides from Sylvia Rosenthal Tolosano, who has the Languages blog. If you haven't seen her blog, you should definitely check it out. But one of the things that she says is that global literacy is not just about sporadic projects. And when I share this slide, again, I'm not saying that Talk Like a Pirate and World Read Aloud Day and Dot Day, I'm not saying that those things are bad, because those events have connected my school with so many people that we do so many things with that I never would have connected with. So those events kind of were a stepping stone to where I am now, because I really do feel like those are kind of sporadic. You connect with these people and then it's over until the next big day. I'm trying to think more about, how do we not, like Sylvia says, don't just talk about the world, but consult with it, speak with it, collaborate with it, learn with it. So, I'm really asking us, how do we foster this global librarian community? How do we create connections between our libraries where we can build upon something that really matters in the world? So Joyce Valenza and I have created this global TL group, which is really open to really everybody. It doesn't have to just be librarians. It doesn't have to be school librarians. It's really this open Google Plus community where we can offer projects that we really want to spend some time connecting with someone around the world on something that really does matter. How can we connect our global voices around something that matters? Like and a great example is in Eyes Wide Open. It's an environmental book. And so there are so many of these environmental projects that could come out of this kind of book, where kids around the world are noticing things in their schools and in their communities that really could have an impact on the way the world works, and that we could share these projects in a collective space. So I think the Global TL group has a lot of potential, and there are so many other ways that we could get involved with each other as well online. My third goal is about empowering student voice. In Expect More, David Lankus talks about that library members should expect more than to just come in and be a consumer in their library. They really should expect to feel like they're a member, helping to shape the library itself. So I'm asking myself that all the time. How can I help the students in my library feel like they really are a member that helps make decisions, that the library's of the community, not just for the community? And so I look for ways to honor whole group voices, but I also love when I can connect with an individual student and empower that one student's voice. A couple of years ago, I had a student, David, who was a survivor of Hurricane Katrina, and he wrote this beautiful poem about Hurricane Katrina. And we ended up having this illustrator, Shadra Strickland, who came in, and she had illustrated these beautiful illustrations for a place where hurricanes happen. And it became this perfect place to display David's poem that he had written. And he got to meet her. His work was displayed right by the illustration of the hurricanes. And then David went on to write a speech that he gave at the Foundation for Excellence. And he said, I really look at myself as a writer because you helped me put my work up for people to see. So I really look for those kinds of things. Listening to student interest. I had 2 students who emailed me and said, we really want to use the Makey in the library. When can we come and use it? And I said, well, let's get you on the calendar. Let's find a way to get you in so that you can start using it. And they've been coming in every Friday and working. Another student came flying into the library at the beginning of the year and said, I have this great idea for these Skylanders that I want to design, and I want to 3D print them. And so when he said that to me, I thought, you know, where does that fit in the curriculum that he's going to be forced to engage in throughout the year? But I didn't say that to him. Instead, I said, let's find a way to make this happen. So I connected him with Tinkercad. He started designing his own Skylander. Another student emailed me and said, you know, I love BrainHive, but I'm not able to find the kinds of tools the kinds of books that I want to read in it. And so, you know, because of her email and stepping up, I was able to respond to her and create videos that really probably helped other students use the tools in the library as well. So I think about, you know, what are the multiple ways that we can capture these stories? Because we're all so busy, it's hard to find these individual stories. So I just try to have conversations. We've got this great Glassboard where kids can write ideas as they come into the library. So I pose questions to kind of capture informal things. I think Flipgrid is a great tool where you can capture student voices and listen back around a specific question. My final goal is about supporting students' reading interest, and not just students, teachers and families as well, their habits and curiosities. And so I try to develop a space in the library where they're just welcome, of course, feel welcome to come in and read, because, you know, the space is important. It's in the Reggio Emilia approach, they talk about the space being the third teacher. But I also look at what are other ways that kids can read and gather information. I had a student who was working on Wolverine research. He was learning about a Wolverine. And we did not have a book about Wolverines in the library, but we did have an Xbox game that was by National Geographic where and it had a section on it on Wolverine. So he used the Xbox, played this game, watched these videos, and captured all these great facts about Wolverines. We need to think about all of the different platforms that are out there. There's so many ways to consume information other than just print books. So many examples of transliteracy and digital tools out there that we really have to look at them all and think collectively, how do we support students in their reading interest? How do we support reading 24/7? So we have a Symbaloo page where we have a one-stop shop where students can go and access all of the digital tools that we have in our library in one place. Also, we honor student voices and reading habits through our student book budgets. Every year I reserve a specific amount of money, and the kids are in total control of it. They develop surveys, they go out and gather data, they analyze the results, they meet with the vendors and find books that match the goals that they've set. And they really build this collection that represents the reading interest of the school. We host reading challenges where it's not just about summer reading, but we're challenging ourselves to read all throughout the year. And I offer these little incentives where they'll collect their books that they're reading. We host things like a picture book smackdown where kids can share books that they're reading outside of the walls. We host blogging challenges where I collect blog posts from students through Google Forms and then post those on the Media Center blog. And then this year we're using a tool by Evance called One Do Reader, where kids are tracking their reading, how much time they're reading, and they're earning points to build these little online robots as they go. So we all have barriers that we face, every one of us. And when you sit down to make your goals, a lot of times you think, oh my goodness, I've got all of these things in my way. And it's important to think about those. What are your barriers? But instead of getting bogged down by them and thinking, I can't do this, really ask yourself, how do I build a bridge to move beyond this barrier? How do I find that one thread that's going to move me forward rather than keep me tangled up in all the frustrations that I have? You know, it's up to us to translate all of the things that we're required to do, whether it's in a school setting or it's in the public library, and really make it something that helps our library members understand the world. So we have this great opportunity to have this conversation with each other. We've got so many tools in our hands that we can support one another as librarians. And I think we need to take that opportunity now to really think about what are the goals that truly matter in your library. Thank you.
Wow, Andy, thank you so much for that amazing keynote. I learned so much just now, just from listening to you. I was trying to tweet and get things ready for the next phase of our conference. So thank you so much, Andy. That was really inspiring, and you're doing some great work in your library, and you've inspired me to go out and do some new and great things in my library. So thank you so much.
Thank you.
All right, participants, we have a 15-minute break between our next sessions. Andy is going to be doing another session at 10:45. And then we're also going to have another session by Sharon Gullett, and she's going to have some other librarians with her as well. That session is going to be Stronger Together, Building School and Public Library Partnerships. And then Andy's session is going to be Empowering Student Voice Through Making, Collaborating, and Crowdsourcing. And then we will have 3 more sessions at the 11:30 to 12 o'clock time. We'll have It's a Smashing Thing by Sue Fitzgerald. Posters Have Gone Tech by Naomi Bates, and then also Making Twitter Your PLN with myself and a couple of my hashtag TLBFFs. So if you want to join us for any of those sessions, you just need to go to nextgenerationlibrarians.wordpress.com/sessions, and the presenters will be posting the links to our live Google Hangouts there, so you can watch them live. All of these sessions are also being recorded on Google Hangout on Air, so those YouTube videos will be posted on our session pages as well underneath the session descriptions. So if you're not catching the sessions today live, they will be up on our website for some time to come for everyone to learn and grow together. So Nancy Jo Lambert from Texas Library Association District 5. I'm the chairperson in our keynote today, and I'm going to let Chris give a sign-off as well.
Thank you, Chris Helge, chair of District 7 for Texas Library Association. Thank you for that wonderful talk, Andy. I agree. I just learned an immense amount of information. I really enjoyed it, and I encourage everyone to go check out the links that Nancy just was conveying. I know we have some great speakers ahead, so thank you again.
All right, we hope you have a wonderful rest of your Saturday, and we hope you come to some of our other sessions. Thank you so much.